Did you know that there are children's cartoons that had extremely sad endings, and others in what some were really very tragic? Others were strange and dark endings, which left the fans extremely intrigued? Well, today we're here to, in quotation marks, disturb a little of your childhood. After all, because I have suffered alone. Is not it? Cartoons are made to amuse and entertain. For sure, many of you, like me, have great memories and memorable moments associated with the scenes and stories of many of these animations. Heroes we admire, many laughs, and undoubtedly, many adventures were things that many drawings brought to us during childhood and adolescence. And maybe even for some adults who also enjoyed a nightclub rest watching Cartoon Network or Disney Channel. Or can watch with nostalgia today with this cartoon streaming. But today we want to remind you, in case you forgot, or show you in case you don't already know, tragic endings of drawings that can spoil your childhood. If you want to discover a needle in the haystack, sit on it. And while sitting, watch this video, because it will surprise you. Teen Titans. Who watched Teen Titans, the first version, surely must remember that at one point, Slade infiltrated a member of the Titans team to be able to sabotage the team. And that spy was Terra, a heroine who possesses the power to freely manipulate the soil and who felt gratitude to Slade for having saved her some time before when she was at risk. So the villain manipulated her into doing whatever he wanted. Upon joining the Titans team, she gradually begins to get attached to everyone, especially the Beast Boy, and he began to like her, but in a different way. In a final moment, Terra changes her mind and sacrifices to save her friends. In doing so, she ends up turning into a statue of stone. What would be a rather tragic end to the character. But this wasn't the final episode of the series yet. Sometimes later, at the school, that Beast Boy was studying with a girl very similar to Terra. And as the Beast Boy went to the place where the statue of the petrified Terra should have been, there was nothing left. So he convinces himself that that girl at the school was his friend and starts trying to convince her to remember her past. But she says that although he was very funny, she was just a girl who had not studied for the math test. At the same moment, she gets more and more distant, and Robin, the leader of the Titans, requests the help of the Beast Boy, who runs out to answer the team's call, while the girl identical to Terra is increasingly distant and disappears among the students. And so ends the last episode of Teen Titans. Sad, right? Can dry the eyes, that I know how you're feeling. The Amazing World of Gumball. The last episode of Season 6 of The Amazing World of Gumball was something that left the fans of the series extremely intrigued and, for some, came to be disturbing. It links in the episode name, The Inquisition. Dude, seriously, from the title you can see that it's something be hard on, and we'll tell you how intriguing and even tragic it is. We already tell you how was the last episode of the Watterson family history, last at least for now, to let us know that you're enjoying knowing all these amazing endings, and many of them I know, comments below. I'm with you guys. Going back to the Inquisition episode, I get goosebumps just saying that name. We see Gumball and Darwin at school, and a new superintendent arrives at Elmore Junior High School. And two things draw attention to him. First, he's a living character, fully human, while all others are animated characters. Second, his name is Evil. Literally, the guy's name is Evil. After a speech in the auditorium for all students, he promises he will do everything so that everyone there becomes, in quotation marks, normal beings. In the course of the episode, he begins to forbid everything he considers strange and to commit various absurdities. But the worst was to come. He said that everyone in school violated the rules of reality, but that it would end. Gradually, all the classmates in the Gumball room begin to turn into ordinary cartoons of normal human children. And worse, after all, Gumball and Darwin enter a room, find a sinister machine, and see their colleagues being transformed from children's drawings into real children, just like Superintendent Evil was. Because they're still cartoons, Gumball and Darwin manage to escape because they do not follow the laws of physics, but decide to run to save their colleagues, and they make one by one of them to being fictional characters, to the point that only Evil was left, who is confronted by all. Then he flees, afraid, but slips into a shell of Banana Joe, and is reached by the students, led by Gumball. And when he sleeps, everyone realizes that his head was all deformed, like an animated character. He then takes off his mask and reveals to be Robbie, that character who spent most of the drawing trying to end Gumball's life, but who had already stopped trying. When he was starting to talk, Tina, the Tyrannosaurus, gave a stick layer in him, and he raises. Many hours pass, so Rob wakes up alone in the school hall at night. Then he begins to regret that one wanted to hear him, and that was the only way for everything to go to that other place. At that moment, a hole opens in the ground, and he's sucked into the vacuum in slow motion. Guys, this is crazy. The episode ends like this. That was in 2019, but in 2021, a film was made official that would continue this specific story and would be released in 2022. Then in 2022, guess what happened? That's right, exactly the opposite of what you thought. No movie, it was cancelled by HBO Max. That's terribly sad. It is speculated that in the 7th season will be released, but now everything has become very uncertain. And it's been 4 years and no one knows what will happen. So this is the end of the series that left us full of questions like, where was he taken? What other place was that he was talking about? Maybe we'll never know. The future will tell us. Spider-Man, the animated series. One of the animated series of the neighborhood hero who was responsible for making a new generation have contact with a character who was launched in 1994. Every once in a while she gets reprised and you should probably know her. The series was much loved while it lasted. There were 5 seasons, and after it came many other series and a trilogy of films. You got it. What many do not know or do not remember is that this series, in its final episode, shows that Mary Jane, the great love of Peter Parker, had fallen into a dimensional limbo of time-space and was lost. And in this episode, Spider-Man enters the same limbo to look for her and rescue her. But since this was the last episode, we'll never know if he made it, or if he failed, and spent the rest of his life trying to find his passion, and maybe never found it. Ever thought an older Spider-Man jumping from building to building with his webs holding a walker or cane behind Mary Jane? Poor thing. Although several other Webhead series have been released, none ensured if he succeeded. Then we'll never know the end. SpongeBob. The last episode of the SpongeBob, in truth, wasn't the last? Confused, right? But I'll explain. That's because Nickelodeon made the planning to finish the drawing, saw the success and how much it could earn and then gave up. But for all intents and purpose, let's talk about what should have been the last episode and how strange it is. Actually, the last episode is a movie that was released in 2004. In the beginning, we see Mr. Krabs holding an event where it would promote the new manager of the Krusty Krab. Of course, SpongeBob was anxious, because he was sure he would be the one. But Mr. Krabs chose Squirrel Tentacles as new manager. In the course of the drawing Plankton, always he manages to steal the secret recipe of the Krabby Patties. Yes, he can do it. And then he starts selling the hamburgers in his own restaurant, called Chum Bucket, and is very successful. But in the end, the Plankton goes to jail, and the Chum Bucket becomes the Krusty Krab too, and SpongeBob then becomes his new manager. But the detail is, as after this movie, several episodes of SpongeBob continued to be released. In fact, to this day they are. The 13th season is even on track to be released. But the fact is that the Krusty Krab was never mentioned again. Plankton was arrested for stealing the recipe for Krabby Patties, so he already has the recipe in his sick mind. After all, he's a genius. So why to this day does he keep wanting to steal the recipe? And how did he get out of jail? It's okay that he's a tiny plankton, very small and all, but you get it. Then there are 2 options. Or the movie is about events that will still occur in the future. After finishing the series of SpongeBob, like there for 2050? Or really, the creator of the drawing simply ignored the ending he himself created and preferred to continue earning his money. After all, the drawing SpongeBob has made Nickelodeon earn more than $13 billion. The ending that it's not final is something that may not be tragic, but it sure is very strange. Tom and Jerry. As much as more Tom and Jerry films and series are always being released, each series has its own seasons, stories and ending. And in one of these series has a tragic and disturbing ending. In this last episode, which is fully narrated by Jerry, we see Tom at the beginning sitting on a train track with an extremely shabby face. And Jerry begins the story, explaining the origin of that sad situation that his friend was in. Tom fell in love and tried at all costs to conquer the cat of his dreams, and does everything to win the heart of his beloved, through gifts and more gifts. But it was always overcome by a rich cat who gave better and more expensive gifts. And it was impossible for him to compete with him. After all, his suitor loved to receive expensive gifts. And at the end of it all, after spending everything she had, every penny, sold everything, she saw her choose her wealthy rival and spend with him in a convertible car. After all this disappointment and frustration with nothing else because he had sold everything he owned, he sees no more sense in life and decides to sit on a train track. Detail, I could hear the background approaching and whistled as a warning sign, while Jerry narrated everything and said how silly Tom was for not wanting to do anything else, for having been exchanged. He himself sees his girlfriend with another rat, rich in a convertible car too, just as it was with Tom. Then the episode ends with him, Jerry, sitting next to Tom, the two with dismayed faces and wanting for the final moment. Wow, what a shame. And that was the last episode of that Tom and Jerry series. An absolutely tragic and disturbing ending per Tom. Maybe if there was already Tinder back then, they wouldn't have done it. Those were the 5 tragic or disturbing cartoon endings that may have ruined your childhood. Or maybe your adolescence. Or if you're an adult and watched some of these drawings when you were a child, like Tom and Jerry, and had not understood. Or if you were slowly losing that dark end of the drawings, you may be having this shock now too. Tell us here in the house, which of these strange and tragic endings surprised you the most? If you liked the video, also comments below if you want to see a part 2 for us to know. See you next time, bye bye.